Welcome to Your Music Saved Us, where two friends blast ourselves into the past to relive and recontextualize the alternative Christian music we grew up listening to in the 1990s. My name is Jay, and I'll be your host today. And with me is the boy who's in control of everything, Clifton. Clifton, how are you today?
Rough. That line really stood out to me, like as I was going through this.
Really?
So,
okay. All right. Well, good. I'm glad I picked it then.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, speaking of that, what are we what are we listening to today?
We are listening to the sophomore album by Kosmos Express, Simulcast.
How are we listening to this? Was this hard to find?
Yeah, it's not on the streaming platforms. So there were a few versions available on YouTube, but I went ahead and put it up as like one single video with timestamps for the songs, so you can go listen to it there.
Yes, and that's honestly what I used for part of this, so thank you. That was nice.
Yeah. It's on the Your Music Saved Us YouTube channel. Yeah.
To follow up, was this played in youth group?
I think the real question is like, had anyone other than like me and one or two of my friends ever heard of Kosmos Express at all? So no, not really. Although that said, I will say that there was an intern, one of the youth group interns, that actually really did like Kosmos Express. So it probably could have gotten played if they tried, So and I was thinking about it, like as I was like going through this, I was like, it was really nice to have an intern who was like someone in a position of authority who actually like really understood a love for music, because I think me and my friends always felt very isolated because, for most people, music was just like something you put on when you're driving, and for us, it was like something very important to our lives. And I think it was nice to have someone in the church who actually understood that.
I get that. We had interns as well, and it always kind of felt like sometimes they were, for lack of a better word, bros sometimes. And it was like,
yeah, exactly.
Talk about football, talk about other stuff. But when you're like, oh, I like this band, this music, they're like, anyway, did you watch that game? Like whatever. And so I get that. If I'd had somebody that was like, and actually, I guess I did. I'm thinking of some older people there that were kind of in that role who appreciated it. It was a nice connection. Yeah. And you didn't feel so alone.
Yeah.
Speaking of experiencing this in youth group and church, are we getting preached at on this?
It's I don't know if preached at is the right word. There's a lot of metaphor here. So it's very thick with, I wouldn't say theology, I guess, but like God stuff. But it's there, but it's not like in your face getting thrown at you kind of thing.
Okay. Fair. Before you tell us about the band, and before I forget, I want to tell everyone to visit patreon.com/YMSU to contribute, to get extended episodes, to get Your Music Damned Us episodes. All that stuff is there. We really appreciate our patrons. It helps us pay for hosting and editing and all those good things. So if you're not a patron, please consider becoming one. We would love to have you join the exclusive club. Clifton, tell us a little bit about Kosmos Express.
Kosmos Express is more or less a project of Rob Gorriab.
Sure.
I found a bio on his now defunct personal website, and I've kind of compiled just like a Reader's Digest version here. Rob, who was born Robert Dale Ward on August 9th, 1968 in Los Angeles, California. He had his start in music basically in junior high. He and a friend learned a bunch of Beatles songs and played them at a convalescence hospital.
Huh.
And, he was pretty content to play Beatles covers. That was until hearing The Jam and The Clash that Rob found his own musical identity. I'm just reading this, by the way.
Okay.
He says, I was listening to the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, even though those groups weren't my generation. But then I caught on to punk and the second wave of mod. Everything clicked and it consumed me. At the age of 14, he got his first break when asked to sing on the Gleaming Spires record Funk for Children. And this is it's kind of hard to call this a break because this was really kind of like a weird. Have you ever heard the Gleaming Spires?
No.
Okay. It's like this weird new wave band, and it's literally called Funk for Children, and it just features a children's choir that's singing Funk for Children, Funk for Children, Funk for Children, like that. And that's, I guess, what he was part of the choir. I don't know.
Okay, I'm looking this up right now as you're talking. Okay, interesting.
It's not a great song.
Right.
From there, like any young musician, Rob was in amateur bands, a few that were pretty good and got a name in the local scene, including a band called The Dynamics and another band called The Signal. He won talent shows, played school dances and parties, picked up whatever he could from those around him. He said, I just got a lot of experience wherever and however I could. I didn't care who or what it was for, as long as I was doing music. In the early 1990s, he joined Mike Stand of Altar Boys as a founding member of the band Clash of Cymbals, a hard rock band with catchy pop melodies similar to Weezer. Now, they say that.
Yeah, I had one of their albums. That's not correct. Yeah, no.
I mean, it is kind of pop rocky, but it still very much feels rooted in like 80s kind of Bon Jovi stuff. Like,
I wanted to like it more than I did. How about that?
Yeah. But he was the guitarist, one of the guitarists for that band. Around this time, he was also in a band called the Defenders and Just Plain Big and King Holiday. So this next part comes from the Mike Knott website. So sometime in late 1995, but before 1996, Mike Knott formed a band with Rob that recorded some for Elektra Records. Their recordings have never been released, though. While on tour for one of those bands, I'm not sure which one, in Europe, he played a sample of some songs he'd been working on to a record executive who then signed him as a singer-songwriter to Zumba Records, or a Zumba music group, which is the parent company of Sublime Records, who we discussed them when we talked about Quill. Soon after, Rob walked away from all those other bands to form the rock band Kosmos Express. Kosmos Express was Rob on vocals and guitar, Bo Burchell on guitar, G.J. Torres on bass, and Mark Powell on drums, piano, and other percussion. This next bit I stole from Cross Rhythms. Rob put together Kosmos Express with a strong batch of tight, hooky rock songs in less than 6 months. They signed to Sublime Records not long after, which is just they decided like where they're going to release it on as far as the Zumba group, and instantly went to the studio to record their debut Now. And also, if you're wondering where the name came from, they're named after a Paul Wheeler song. Paul Wheeler was the vocalist for The Jam, which was one of those early like punk bands and mod punk bands in 1977.
So can I say I learned this too, and I looked up that song Cosmos and listened to it. And Did you listen to it?
Yeah.
It sounds nothing like The Jam or Kosmos Express.
No, it's pretty boring.
Yeah, it's kind of got like funk jazz. Like I was confused more after hearing it.
Yeah, I listened to quite a bit of Paul Wheeler, and it was not. I didn't enjoy it.
I like The Jam, but yeah, his solo stuff, I was kind of like,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, okay.
I agree. So Rob says of that, I'm not sure what that song really means, but to me it meant some kind of search for God without boundaries or expectations. This is the way we want to express our faith. After releasing Now in 1997, the next year they recorded Kosmos Express with Gene Eugene in the famous Green Room. That's where this album came from.
We should really go back, Clifton, and do a tabulation of how many of the albums we've covered so far have been recorded in the green room. I bet it's at least double digits.
Yeah, it's probably half of them.
So, do you have any memories with this? Like when you first heard it, or any particular experiences, anything like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. So of all the music through the years of high school and some of junior high, the only album I ever remember like anticipating, like waiting impatiently for was this album, Simulcast by Kosmos Express. I literally had the poster for this album on my wall before the album even came out that I snagged from the local Christian
Oh
bookstore
yeah,
because what else were they going to do with it,
right.
as a kid growing up on predominantly like punk rock, Cosmos Express had kind of captured my imagination with their first album. Now, I didn't really understand like why or what I liked about it, and strangely enough, like it made me like almost uncomfortable because I'm like, am I allowed to like, as like an insecure teenager, I'm like, am I allowed to like this like poppy, soft music? Am I betraying my punk roots? I don't know.
Interesting.
But even then, it didn't sound like stuff on the radio. But it was what my kind of like neophyte self didn't know at the time, though. Highly influenced by the Kinks, the Beatles, the Who, and the Jam. Now it was a pretty kind of like feel good album of kind of like mixed quality songs. It's mostly just pop songs. But when I heard that Cosmos was coming out with a second album and that it was going to be darker than the first, I was really excited by that. So pretty much the moment it came out, I bought it.
Any memories from listening to it, or songs, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it like I remember, like I have a distinct memory in my head of like the CD,
Mm-hmm.
like as flipping through my CD binder for this, like I knew what the CD looked like, right? And I still have that picture in my head. I remember getting to school and kind of like the album not being over, obviously, because it didn't take that long to drive anywhere in my hometown. So I remember getting to school and just being like just sitting in my car for the album to finish. And I think one of the big things on this is like the influence it had on my life musically beyond that. Like I mentioned, I was concerned if I was allowed to like this like soft poppy music. But listening to this and I think a few months later Quail came out and that kind of stuff. So I think between all that I kind of realized that all of these things, first off, they actually kind of go back to punk roots already, right? Like it has a similar lineage of punk. Plus, it helped educate like the stupid sheltered kid that I was that into a world of music that I had never heard before. Obviously, like I said, I knew at the time that it had Beatles influences, but that's all I really understood. And I also knew that it kind of like sounded like Oasis and Blur, though I'd only heard their songs on like the radio in classrooms when they turned on the radio, so I'd never really heard their stuff. But I think it really opened up this world of this like independent kind of pop music and like what became basically indie pop. So I think this is kind of my first foray into that kind of stuff.
Any, like, have you revisited it since then? I mean, any ideas on what it was going to be like before you dived in?
So I actually when I was doing that, when I attempted to do the blog that was similar to what this podcast is several years ago, this was one of the albums I tried to write about, and I think this is actually the one where I just kind of gave up on the blog because I didn't know what to say about it at the time. So I had listened to it not terribly long ago, but even then I wasn't sure like I wasn't sure if I was, because I remember that I gave up on the blog because of this album. So I wasn't sure if I was going to find that it was like not very good, or if it was boring, or if it was just not performed well. But I will say that I put it on, and I think that the songwriting is there, the performances are there. The performances are really there. I think the performances on this album are outstanding. So yeah, yeah. Happily, I think that this does stand up to what I remember as a kid.
Good. Well, you want to
Yeah,
jump in?
let's do it.
All right. Tell us about the first song, Clifton, The Force.
So this song starts out with like some quick like scraping guitars, like.
Take a trip on a runaway ship with a destination course. Sorry to say that it's not the same as a magical mystery tour. Although you think you get it now, you're really in for it. 'Cause days like these are an invitation for those not invited. I'm mad into the force.
Anyways, and the vocals come right in, and really the entire band comes in pretty quickly too. Scraping kind of keeps up with this kind of like fairly trippy, fun bass line through the chorus. I mean, really, I kind of love the bass on this album. It doesn't ever go really super wild, but it definitely, you can see the Beatles influence on the bass here, in that it's not just, it's very rarely just super straightforward, unless if there's a lot of distortion going on, it gets pretty straightforward. But for the most part, there's actually pretty fun bass on this album. But then we actually get this like, so this is a pretty fast song, and we get this like almost like punk-esque chorus, which listening to this coming from now for me, which is mostly just like pretty standard, pop songs. Well, that's not true. It's not like radio pop songs, but it's like very much in the line of the Beatles and the Kinks and stuff like that. Getting this song was like, I was like, okay, what's going on here? It was much. It was a very pleasant surprise, I would say. And you get this kind of just like clangy drums and the very simple repeated line, "I'm mad into the force" for the chorus. And really, it's a pretty short and fast song. It comes in at like 1 minute and 45 seconds. It repeats, and then it abruptly goes into this like slower, like short piano bridge thing at one point, which is kind of fun. But by the end of the song, you probably aren't sure what to expect from the rest of the album, honestly, because this is such a big departure from their first album, and it's energetic and it's fun, and it definitely has, some mod and punk and British invasion influences in it. And what you can make out of the lyrics even has a Beatles reference, I think, right off the bat, kind of in the second line. The first line is, "Take a trip on a runaway ship with a destination course." Second line, "Sorry to say that it's not the same as a magical mystery tour," which is a Beatles reference,
Right.
And you also get this "I'm mad into the force" thing, and you're probably thinking to yourself like, what is going on here? It's yeah, so you have these like nice cryptic lyrics, which the first album had good lyrics, but they're not kind of like this metaphor laced kind of cryptic lyrics like this album does. And so, I think it's a very fun and energetic song to start off the album with.
So I'm glad you brought that up. That was a question I had. I put that in my notes. "I'm mad into the force." Is this, he's
Yeah.
a big fan of Star Wars? Like what's going on?
You want to talk about lyrics?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So yeah, the lyrics for me, especially when I was a kid, were great because they're fun and exciting with a sense of kind of like wonder to them. And like I said, the first line is, "Take a trip on a runaway ship with a destination course." It sounds kind of nonsensical, but then you think about it and you're like, okay, I can get that. It's kind of like implying that there's kind of this adventure going on that might seem out of control, but it's not out of control. There's definitely somewhere it's going on purpose. That's kind of how the whole album, whole song is, I think, in that it has kind of this like somewhat metaphorical, not straight ahead. You got to think about it lyrics, but they're also written in such a way that I think that it feels relatable, but also mystical isn't the right word, but like full of mystery and adventure kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that.
And so, I think kind of the theme of the song is kind of like this promise of a Christian life that's not going to be predictable or safe, but would instead be like an adventure, which we kind of see around this time in
Saddle up your horses.
Exactly. We see that in Stephen Christian Chapman's The Great Adventure. And also, you see it in kind of like the Wild at Heart type of thing, and the kind of that whole culture that that's discussed in that book Jesus and John Wayne, that kind of Wild at Heart
Right.
culture. There's some great lines in it, but they're also kind of weird. Like change your life, it'll change your wife. It's about the blood rush in. It's fun. It's not straightforward, so you have to actually read it and think about it. I do have something to share. Go ahead, ask your question.
I was saying you still didn't really answer it. What is I'm mad into the Force?
Right. So let me give you that, okay? So I actually found, I don't know, it's this weird website, like, for youth pastors, I guess.
Oh, no.
And but it has a bunch of songs. It has like a database of songs where like artists have actually submitted like short little answers on what the song is about. Okay. Yeah. So it's actually a little bit helpful for us here. And so Rob, I assume it's Rob because it says I, right?
Okay.
So he says, I often think about how being a follower of Jesus is a journey and an adventure. Accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior is something that needs to be taken seriously with your heart and mind, not just emotionally with warm fuzzies. He's the force. The song is hopeful and a fresh way of viewing faith. So it's not Star Wars. I'm mad into Jesus because Jesus is the force, which kind of makes sense, that Jesus is, if you want to take the Christian cosmological, he's the first mover, he's a prime mover, the cause for everything.
But
right?
Clifton, was he afraid to speak Jesus' name and just had to use the word force? Why not just say Jesus?
I don't think so. I mean, Jesus does get brought up other places in the album. So I don't think that he's just afraid to say Jesus. This isn't. I don't think you can make the same arguments as that were made against Jars of Clay here, right?
Okay. All right. Okay.
That said, I actually did. So I actually have a little paragraph to read here from Seven Ball, from an interview that was done at the time that this album came out, that talks about the lyrics. And they said the improvisational approach was also was talking about songwriting, and then it goes in here into the lyrics here. The improvisational approach was also applied to the lyrics, most of which are, at best, enigmatic, at worst, inscrutable. And then a quote here from Rob. I've never been good at saying, I'm going to write about a song about this. I just can't. I don't think what I do is art. I'm good at dummy lyrics. The line, please believe me when I tell you that it's more than I can take. Don't forget I don't believe you when you throw it in my face. Sounds really thought out. I babble it off the top of my head. Thank God I had a tape recorder.
So some of it's a little bit just stream of consciousness, but feels like there's some meaning when he thinks about it later.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that because it's still fun. And, its stream of consciousness is still coming from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that there's plenty of meaning to find there. And I assume, he doesn't say here, but I assume that at some point he actually went back and edited some lyrics to make them make more sense,
Yeah. Fair.
Beyond just the initial stream of thought. Yeah. What do you think about the song?
So I'll be honest. I don't think I'd listened to Kosmos Express much at all. The first album, I remember the cover of the first album more. So maybe if I'd ever heard them, it was that one. So when I put this on, I was like, oh, this is more aggressive than I thought it would be. And a little poppier. Like it was, I was not expecting it, I guess, to sound like that to start off.
Right.
So yeah, I liked the song. It was pretty fast. Like it's like you said, it's 1:45. It's short.
Mm-hmm.
I liked also how the drums are kind of aggressive. I noticed that a few times in this album. They kind of have like the double snare hit that leads into the chorus on this.
There's a lot of cracks right before choruses here.
Yeah. So I liked that. So yeah, I enjoyed the song. I mean, you know me, I tend to prefer more upbeat stuff. So actually, this is one of the highlights of the album for me because I feel like we mostly slow down at least a little bit after this one.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely starts to slow down. Yeah.
And I will say overall, I struggled with the lyrics quite a bit on this album. And I'm not always like a lyrics first guy. Like that's fine. But when I'm trying to like scrutinize them for this, I was a little kind of lost on a lot of them. But I gave it my best shot. So we'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, I liked it. should we go on? Number 2?
Yeah, so we're gonna skip the second song, but I do have a little bit to say about it. I think it's a good follow-up song. It's not super special to me. It does have a great line in it about. It's basically a song about like not selling Jesus.
Don't want to be a seller, want to be Paul Weller. So, song number 3, take me away.
So the last track was also, it's not as fast as the first song, but it's still pretty fast and heavy. And so, as is this one, it keeps pace in the intensity of the album going with a pretty hard rocking intro. Like I said, it's definitely keeps up the speed, but like on Now, all the songs were pretty bright, pretty sing-alongy, whereas this one all of a sudden we're like, this is a minor chord. I mean, this is a minor key here, right? So we have something like darker and just different going on here than we got on Now originally, so which, as like I said, as a kid, I loved. Like, I was really looking forward to this being a kind of a darker album. But not only that, my musical exposure up to this in my life is like, I'd been listening to punk rock and ska, of course, and I my dad listened to like Led Zeppelin and Creedence Clearwater Revival, and my mom listened to like Garth Brooks, and there's the Christian music, but like I'd never heard anything like this, and so it was very intriguing to me as a kid, that it's not like any of those things. And so this song, like I said, it's actually in B minor, so it's in a minor key. And so, it starts off here, it actually starts off with the B minor chord, but that lead part here that you get like right as the song opens, that's just playing, it's actually just C sharp and D, which is the second, so it's a second note. C sharp is the second note in B minor, and then D, which is the note that makes it a minor, actually a minor key, is kind of creating this this kind of dissonant thing that's going on. They're actually both in the key, but it's creating this kind of dissonant thing that's going on here. I really like it. Then we get to the verse, which kind of slows down, has this kind of really ephemeral, arpeggiated thing going on.
Yeah, and the distortion kind of cuts out on the verses. You kind of get that loud, soft dynamic.
Exactly,
on the
yeah.
song,
A lot of loud, soft dynamic. Yes, great. But it's a really interesting, like musically. I've not gone back and learned many songs from these days. But I actually went back and learned this while we were doing this over the last 2 weeks, because the song is so interesting. So musically, the chords for the verse and the intro there, it's in B minor, and the chords are A, F sharp minor, and G, which are 7, 5, and 6. So it's pretty interesting chord makeup there. Kind of just gives it this kind of like a little bit unsettling feeling to it, right? And that dissonant intro kind of cuts back in, kind of in the middle of the verse, and it goes back into a verse again. And then, as you mentioned, you get this kind of great, kind of high intensity, like tap tap, right as you go into the chorus.
This is how it feels when you're old. This is how it feels. Take me away. Take me away. Take me away. Take me away.
So I love the they seem to have some pretty simple choruses on here. This one's just "Take me away, take me away, take me away" as far as the vocals are concerned. Has really good backing vocals, which always give it kind of a dissonance. I also like listen to this, like the guitar on the verse. It's kind of doing this doom doom thing, but it has like this really big round sound to it.
Rise and sound.
know why. It just like it's like this. It's not haunting, but it's like it feels different than things I had heard at that time in my life, I think. And so it just, I don't know, it gives a nice feel to the song. All right, so let's dive into the lyrics here. Let me read the lyrics here, and then we
it's
can
pretty
talk about
short
them.
for
It's
this
pretty
one.
short. Yeah. All I do is dream. I'm the boy who's in control of everything, which is Jay's opening line there. Time is yours and mine. In the end, what you give is what you get. This is how it feels when you're old. This is how it feels. Take me away, take me away, take me away. Rise and sound the voice. I'm free from the pressure to compete. This is how it feels when you're old. This is how it feels. Take me away. A bunch of times. What do you think the song is about, Jay?
Clifton, I'm going to be honest. I have no fucking idea. That was me on most of the songs on this album. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming Take Me Away is some kind of God thing. I want to be caught up in you or something, but I honestly had no idea.
Okay. So, I just kind of like, as I was going through this, I just kind of wrote down what I thought about this song when I was a kid, which actually turns out to be kind of pretty on with the actual theme of the song, which I was surprised by because it seems so elusive, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, the lyrics for the song definitely captured my imagination as a kid, especially that intro line. All I do is dream. I'm the boy who's in control of everything. It's very evocative, and for me, like I said, I didn't know if this was meant to be interpreted this way, but for me, it was very much about like dreaming of being something more real, maybe, as opposed to being, quote, the boy who's in control of everything. Having nothing to do with being in control of like the world around me, but having to be constantly like control of like how I present myself, And I kind of felt weird writing this down because I felt like I was very self-consumed writing this. But from my perspective, like I've always been tall, and so being tall kind of always means that everyone always notices you when you're around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, for example, consider myself to have been fat in high school, but I always got called fat, so I always had to like present myself in a way that's very contrary to like fat stereotypes. Kind of controlling, who got to see the presentable me or who got to see the real me. Which is probably something that I assume, something that all teens kind of go through in their own way.
Right.
That's what that line meant to me, is that kind of controlling how I'm perceived by everyone else.
Okay. I could see that. Yeah, now the song makes a little more sense. All right.
Yeah. Which also makes sense out of the really, like, if you don't get that, this is how it feels when you're old, sounds really weird, right?
Yeah.
But I think what he's just saying there is like, as you get older, you don't care about that shit.
Okay.
So that said, this is on that youth pastor website. This is what he said. This is a song about finally coming to a place where you really don't have to care about what other people think. Peer pressure has no effect on you. You don't feel the need to compare yourself to others. You have no time for unnecessary opinions. You just care about being truthful to who you are. That's part of the freedom in Christ.
It's sorry, the last part, freedom in Christ. I'm like, that's interesting because I'm getting off the lyrics for a second, but like,
yeah,
thinking about when that time period, like when you're in evangelical church, is there actually much freedom? Because I feel like the expectations there are like crazy high. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I mean, definitely it's not something that you're going to experience in a Baptist church, that freedom in Christ.
Right. They say that a lot, like freedom in Christ. Yeah. What the hell does that actually mean? Yeah.
Exactly. We talked about this on the last episode. Everyone has expectations of you, and their expectations are definitely rooted in their view of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's and it doesn't have anything to do with Christianity. It doesn't have anything to do with any of that shit. It just has to do with like what, pretty much like how were they raised and what, like they've given a moral standing to what they're used to.
Yeah.
And this also hit me. I've been trying to, so I watched the first 2 seasons of Handmaid's Tale when it came out, and then I kind of fell off because it was coming out too quickly and I was too busy, and which is weird because it only came out like 10 episodes at a time each year,
Right. But I get it. You get, yeah.
And it's a pretty heavy show, but the 5th season just came out and I'm trying to catch up so I can watch it. So I've been watching Handmaid's Tale. And especially as we get, I'm into season 3 now, and watching it and like, it's kind of funny because they keep talking about things like this freedom in Christ and like, take time to become who Christ wants you to be. But it's like, when you're living in an authoritarian state that has expectations of you, how in the world can you ever admit sins? Like,
right.
Unless it's in the context of, I got caught sinning and so I have to admit my sin to not get killed. How are you just going to casually admit to sins in a fucking authoritarian state that wants to enforce a certain biblical interpretation of the Bible on you? I don't know. That just came to me. So in that in a much softer way, that kind of has to do with the same thing with kind of being raised in a Baptist church. People have these expectations of you, and you're allowed to say that you messed up, but only like because you're super duper sorry, not because like, hey, I messed up and it's time to move on from it.
Yeah, like you need to feel some guilt and some shame about that.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting because the idea should be just moving on and bettering yourself rather than wallowing in all of it, but it's really the opposite.
Yeah. I wonder what it'd be like to be raised in that. We probably wouldn't have near as much to talk about.
Wouldn't be doing this podcast. Yeah.
Good point.
Oh, well. All right. You want to do number 5?
Well, we're not going to spend any time on Lifetime. It's a slower song. I thought it's a good song. But for me, like the second half is just like too much like standard, like kind of hard rock kind of guitar stuff.
Who do you answer to?
Anyways, I find it boring. The last half of the song. Yeah, but track 5, Gone. So kind of we're slowing down a little bit here already, but we get something different on this song, which is it immediately starts with some strings.
Ooh, that's what I was about to say. Strings.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 2 songs on this album that have strings. This, and we'll talk about the other one when we get to it. There's 2 cellos and a viola on the string arrangements for this album. Jay, when do you think was the first time that you heard strings in like a rock and roll band?
Ooh, that's a good question, Clifton. Off the top of my head, I don't know. It was probably around this time. I do remember on Mike Knott's Strip Cycle solo album, he had a song with a cello in it. I think there's probably others I'm not thinking of, but this time-ish in my life.
Yeah. Same for me. Like, I think this was my first like big, like first time I like really took notice of it. So it's another thing that kind of a whole new world that opened up my eyes were opened up to by this album. I think the strings here are really beautiful. They're not super complicated, but they do add like a somberness to the feel of this song. So that intro is kind of dominated by the strings and drums. The strings actually drop out after the intro, and a guitar takes over doing pretty much the same thing. But through the verse, there's this kind of just a weird. For me, it felt weird, and I couldn't figure out why. Besides, once again, being in a minor key, there's lots of minor key songs on this album. But let me play this again, going into the verse, which is all the same. It's the same progression.
Place your bets with no regret, we're told. Take the blame, feel the shame tomorrow. I've already
Okay, Jay. In most, I would say even most modern music, not just rock and roll, 4/4 is the time signature that's most commonly used. You get some 3/4, you get some 6/4. This song actually is in 4/4 though. But in addition to 4/4 being a most common time signature, you usually get repeats on an even number of measures. So either 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 things repeat on. Okay.
Okay.
This repeats after 3 measures.
Hmm.
Yeah, not the typical 4. But then it has a total of 8 measures in the verse. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's something that you don't think about that actually gives the song an interesting feel to it. And then as the towards the end of the verse, we get this like really great kind of like super like it's a Marshall guitar amp, but it's just a super like mid-heavy distorted amp that sounds great.
Many times, and I know I'm alive, 'cause I'm already gone, and I don't know if I can take it, 'cause I've been here so long, and I don't know if I can make it.
We get the strings back there in the chorus. And then I'm going to skip to the third verse. The strings kind of come back in with everything else this time. So we get like a really full sounding, everything's, there's a bunch of layers, I should say.
And I know I'm alive, 'cause I'm already gone, and I don't know if I can take it, 'cause I've been here so long, and I don't know if I can make it the day we all change. Angels call me, strangers everything. I'm on a search, and if I leave, we see.
It's a pretty simple song, but I think it's really emotionally impactful. This is one of my favorite songs back in the day. And I think a big part of that, the success of this song, is of course because of all the layering of the bass and the true guitars and the strings and everything. But I think the biggest part is Rob's vocals. They're just really heartfelt and almost like heartbreaking, especially on the lines, "I know I'm alive because I'm already gone." They're so heartfelt without kind of submitting to the temptation to kind of lose control in them. They're still measured and controlled, I think, which kind of gives them even more. To me, it almost makes them more heartbreaking because they're under control, but you can tell they're very emotive. What do you think about the song? I figure you don't like it because it's too slow.
It was okay. All right, to give my honest opinion, and this is on some of the songs, I felt like it wasn't bad, but it was more that
Right.
kind of thing like if my buddy here in town had a band and played this, I'd be like, yeah, that's good, but I don't know if I'd like go
Yeah.
out of my way to like track it down or listen to it otherwise.
No, I understand that completely. Yeah.
Yeah, but this one was, I thought the drums were like still fairly aggressive for the song, which I kind of liked.
Mm-hmm.
I could not figure out the lyrics though. Again.
Let's talk about them.
Yeah. Well, can I bring up a line then since we're jumping in?
Yeah.
He says, "Angels call me." I think this is kind of like the bridge. "Angels call
It
me.
is, yeah.
Strangers mean everything." I mean, does he want to die? Is that what that means? Angels call me. I don't know. Could not
I don't
figure
know.
this out.
That's one of the lines that really jumped out at me too, and I have no clue what to say about it. It's interesting. It's evocative. And I have absolutely no clue what it could possibly mean.
Okay.
Yeah. and so for like for me, this is one of the songs that I'm not super sure what's going on. I already mentioned, the line. I know I'm alive because I'm already gone. It's intriguing, but it's opaque. Here, so first off, on that youth pastor website, this is what he has to say about it. Dedicated to the men and women in prisons around the world.
Okay. I read,
Does that
was it maybe it was the 7-Ball interview? I read in something you sent that he said he had kind of written this and not exactly known what it meant either, but then he played it in a prison.
right?
And kind of, am I ruining what you're about to share?
No, it's fine.
Okay, sorry. And then kind of realized, oh, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Right.
So let me read that from this. It is from the 7-Ball interview.
Sorry.
It's just the next paragraph after the one I read earlier. In most instances, meaning didn't materialize until after the songs were completed. He wrote "Gone," the record's lilting centerpiece, with nary a clue to its meaning. When he was invited to play at Colorado Detention Center, where his future father-in-law, Nicky Cruz, was speaking, the cryptic prose became vested with meaning. Now we're doing a quote here. I'm singing the song, and most of these guys are sitting there in handcuffs and shackles. Suddenly, I could not believe how every line was meant for them. Place your bets, no regrets, we're told. Take the blame, feel the shame tomorrow. I've already been here so many times. Most of these guys are repeat offenders. I'm watching them, tears starting to come out of their eyes, and I thought, my gosh, God, that's what this song is about. I don't know. So I do like your analysis that, if a friend of mine wrote this song, I would definitely be super proud of him, right?
Yeah, you go see it and you'd be like, oh, this is not bad at all.
Yeah. But I that's kind of one of the things I had on this album, where there's some really good songs on this album, but some of them do come off as kind of like, yeah, that's good. And they're fun on the album. Like, I think the album flows perfectly. But if you isolate some of these songs, like this one from the album, I do think it loses a lot to it.
I think that's how I felt overall about this a little bit, as someone who I don't have the history with it. So I was kind of like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Next song.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Like, it was just that, kind of thing.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
All right, the next song, On Top of the World, track 6. So, I honestly thought I would have a lot to say about this song because it was one of my favorite songs when I was a kid. It's a nice song, but I think when I was a kid, honestly, I just loved screaming, "Don't bring me down because I'm on top of the world."
Fair.
Plays all our heroes. It's hard to say, believe me, man, I'm here to say it. Don't bring me down, 'cause I'm on top of the world. The lucky Jesus loves you, 'cause sometimes
That's fun to sing along to. There's some other great lines. You're lucky Jesus loves you because sometimes I just don't.
Yeah, I noted that one. I liked that one a lot.
I wonder why you smoke when you know it's a killer. My mind is in a cloud. I'm a 4-leaf clover. There's so many channels, yet there's nothing to watch.
If truth could write a book, I'd be nervous to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. So there's some really good lines here. Most of those, however, are just the first line of each verse.
Yeah.
So, important songwriting tip lesson, everyone here. Write some cool one-liners, stick them at the beginning of your verses, then a one-line chorus that you can scream along to, and that's all you need.
There you go.
Especially if you drop everything out, except for like one anemic guitar, and you kind of scream that line, it's tops. It works.
I kind of thought the way, like, I don't know how to say it, maybe the cadence, like the way he delivers the lyrics is a little bit interesting in this one. Like the rhythm he uses is different than the other songs.
Yeah.
Like,
My mind is in a cloud.
Yeah.
I'm a 4-leaf clover.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that in any of the other songs. This was the one song where I felt like he's kind of following a particular rhythm as he delivers the lyrics.
I think we'll see that in one other song as we go through here. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It may be the most interesting part of the song, honestly.
Yeah.
And it makes these like semi-clever one-liners kind of work pretty well, I think.
Right.
So you want to dig into these weird lyrics?
I mean, honestly, I just noted the part about you're lucky Jesus loves you, come some nights I don't, and the other one I said, and that's about all I got. I just had a bunch of question marks, like, I don't know.
Yeah. My back is aching me, but so are my eyeballs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. Cool.
I think that the meaning of the song is pretty straightforward and honestly kind of boring, especially if we pay attention to the last verse here. There's so many channels, yet there's nothing to watch now. Better to have a family. Your values are not found. I think it's just like, turn off the TV, get back traditional family values, you know.
Oh, man.
Especially the
traditional family values.
I don't think it's so much like, hey, don't be gay, as much as it's like, gotta eat dinner with your family so you all stick close together kind of thing, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, there's the line, I'm on a road, and I think this is the, fellas, don't bring me down because I'm on top of the world the third time, so I guess it's the bridge, maybe. I'm on a road, and I know when I get there, and I'll know when I get there because I'll be there and you'll be true. So I assume he's talking about like he's on the road of life and he knows that he's traveling towards God and he'll know when he arrives because God will be true. I don't know. It's kind of boring.
I don't know. Yeah.
Me either. All right. So let's hear what Rob has to say about it. Many directions, many thoughts. A transparent attempt at exposing lots of thoughts while keeping my optimism. I'm sure Jesus often had random thoughts while on earth. I do mine in songs. Yeah.
That's okay. That's funny. Like, I'm sure Jesus, blah, blah, blah. I did mine in songs. Like, that's an interesting way to pull Jesus into everything, right? I'm in a Christian band. I'm sure Jesus pooped. So blah, blah. I don't know. It's just funny. Like,
yeah.
Jesus must have done this too because he was human. So, yeah, there we go.
Yes. It's a very, very cynical take, too. I appreciate it.
Sorry.
No, it's not wrong. All right, let's move on here.
Emotional, number 7.
Yeah, track 7. Okay. This is another short and fast and fun song. Honestly, still one of my favorites. The chorus is I'm so emotional, you're so beautiful.
But you're not singing it like he does on the song, Clifton.
Honestly, just makes the song. It's about all you need for this song. Let's listen to it. And you're right, I didn't say it like he said it. Because once again, he actually says it with a very purposeful rhythm.
Running on the spot, always having, always will. I'm so emotional. You're so beautiful. Oh yeah. You shouldn't let those feelings blind.
Okay, I want to talk about that because
yeah,
I was reading some of the stuff you sent me, and I even watched that video clip that we were talking about with the two terrible, intro DJs who were flirting with each other clearly the whole time. Anyway, it's a side conversation. But when they interviewed the band, he in multiple places talked about Paul Weller, Brit, like kind of like Brit pop, mod culture in like the 60s and all that. And even when you look at the packaging, which I know we're talking about the minute of the album, I was like, okay, I see what they're going for, but I didn't really hear it in the music until this song. And with that chorus, I thought, oh, I get it now. Like that's what they're going for. Just like, I'm so emotional, just the way they did it. And then also that bass that comes out behind it, like, kind of loud and clear. I was like, okay, this is the first song where I really see it here. And I liked this song quite a bit.
Yeah, this is, I think, to me, I like this song back in the day, but to me, this is now one of the better songs on the album.
Yeah, like I would like to hear them do more like this,
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I like the darker stuff too, but this really hits, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really like you talked over it here, so I'll rewind a little bit. But I like this kind of bridge that they go into where they just make a bunch of noises.
Running on the spot, always having, always will. I'm so emotional. You're so beautiful. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
they actually do another bridge.
Running on the spot, always have it, always will. I'm so emotional. You're so beautiful. Oh yeah. I took my love to a higher calling. I took my love to a higher calling. I took my love to a higher calling. I took my love to a higher calling.
I really like the end bridge there. Took my love to higher calling. I don't know. I think it works really well, and it's fun, and it has a great rhythm. But let's listen to that bass that you just mentioned there, Jay, on coming out of the into the verse, into the chorus. Really funky. I like it.
Like I said, I felt like maybe this was one of the later songs they wrote, and this was the direction they were trying to go. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I really thought this kind of nailed what it felt like they were trying to do.
What do you think the song is about?
So I thought, like, you know, at the end of the song, he says, "Took my love to a higher calling."
Mm-hmm.
In this, allow me to go on a bit of a tangent for a second. This seems like something that I felt like happened a lot in Christian music, especially Christian music we were listening to at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some kind of vague lyric that could possibly interpret it as Christian. So like as Christian kids, we latched onto it and we're like, see, it's Christian. And I don't know why we need, I seriously, real question. I don't know why we needed to do this, why we could not just enjoy it on its own merits. But it's like we had these strict unspoken rules and everything needed to pass some kind of test rather than just enjoying it for what it was. We had to find something that could justify it as being Christian.
I like the test thing. It's almost like the Supreme Court. Like, here's the rules on how you interpret, free speech violations. Like okay, let's run it through our little system over here. Does it come out as Christian?
Right. It's like, okay, as long as they had a couple places on the album that they say something that could vaguely be construed as talking about God, I'm okay with it. I don't know. So I found myself going kind of back to my old way of thinking at the time when I'd hear that and be like, okay, that's about God. But really looking now, it's like, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about, honestly. So to get back to your question, I don't really know. I hooked onto that line and was like, oh, that's God, but I have no idea.
Interesting. So I had the kind of opposite journey, which is I started out thinking that this was kind of like a quirky love song, but it's not, turns out. According to Rob, let me quote him here again. Jesus is speaking in the verses. I'm speaking in the choruses. It's about having faith in the face of the unknown. It's hard for me to let go of the reins. So Jesus is speaking in the verses. So let's read the first verse here. You can always change your life to another's plan, which means, hey, you don't have to keep doing your thing. You can always just do what someone else tells you to do. Now I'm here to be your guide. Won't you take my hand? You might as well. We all know yours didn't work out right.
Okay.
Is Jesus a dick here? Like, that's pretty... It's not kind.
I mean, the evangelical Jesus was kind of a dick a lot of times, so sure, this fits.
All right. We have Mark's version of Jesus here. The dick version. That's the one who cursed the is he the one who cursed the fig tree when it wasn't in season?
Oh man, going deep on me, Clifton. I don't remember.
Sorry. All right, we'll keep moving on. I think if you don't look at this as an evangelical song, I think it's kind of fun,
Okay.
including the lyrics. So yeah. So track 8, The Way. I think that this, and maybe I'm just speaking from my own self-bias here, I can imagine this being one of the more popular songs on the album, other than being slower. So obviously you're not going to like it, you know. I could have seen it being a single. Musically, it's probably one of the most beautiful songs on the album. There's even a self-made video on YouTube dedicated to the maker's wife for her birthday using this song. So, obviously someone finds it beautiful. This is where strings reappear on the album. And I just think it has this beautifully compressed guitar. It has the strings there. And there's a swelling to it. It's not really that loud, soft. It's just one kind of swelling thing through the whole song. And I think it really works. Let me play here. I want to play about around 2 minutes into the song, which I think is probably the most beautiful part of the song. With it, we get kind of the second chorus going on here into the bridge, and we get all these strings, especially after the line, "Watching you, watching me."
Time can make you feel, and days can make you heal, but it's not the same. I wanna know the way. Watching you, watching me, watching all the stars fall from my eyes. You're the face I celebrate, participate, unite, your voice reflect.
It's just really beautiful. I think not a lot else to say about it except for I can easily see why maybe someone's favorite song.
Okay.
All right, so Rob's explanation for the lyrics here are interesting. He says, "I'm at a place in my life where I want to be open and go beyond the typical read my Bible, go pray, go to church. I want that and more. I want to know the way to meet Christ in a tangible, relational, two-way daily lifestyle. I'm seeking to go beyond my own humanity." So I want to read, probably one of the main lines from the song here. "'Cause time can make you feel, and days can make you heal, but it's not the same." What does that mean?
No idea.
Yeah. Time can make you feel. I think it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
Time can make you heal, right? Days can make you feel, I don't know, whatever. But it's not the same as what?
Hmm.
I don't know. I have no answer to this, by the way. I'm just very confused by it.
Yeah.
What? But maybe it's just that stream of consciousness thing.
Okay.
All right. Let's move on to track 9 here. "She's on My Side."
A song about a girl. I think. I feel safe enough saying that, I think.
Jay coming down with a quick interpretation.
Yep.
Okay.
Gotta go for it.
So this is easily the song that gets stuck in my head the most, maybe followed by Emotional. So the song starts off pretty rocking with kind of dissonant one single note lead here.
And I don't care how our love appears, and I don't mind.
I find the lead guitar intro interesting because it's just a single note being kind of it's bent really to hell, so it's kind of going dissonant, you know. But just a single note opening to the song. But it starts off pretty rocking and fun. The lyrics for the verse and the verses themselves aren't anything super special, but the chorus is really simple, but also kind of great. And I like the dissonant vocal on this one. Once again, they do a really good job of that kind of stuff.
You'll see, you're the one for me. She's on my side, and I feel fine, and I feel fine, and I feel fine, and I feel fine.
I think you can almost like kind of teach a class on just that chorus right there, because you get a lot of great things in there. You bring in kind of that dissonant guitar, you bring it to a full stop, you build up to the first part of the to the chorus, and you let it all go. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's a catchy song. And I did like that kind of like how that lead guitar starts off the song. We're gonna talk about lyrics.
Yeah, I think they're pretty universal.
Hey,
Love song.
I was just looking at my notes. I said lyrically they switch between you and she a lot, which seem to kind of have the same meaning. It's not clear. And then I wrote,
Yes.
I kind of feel like lyrics were an afterthought for this band. so I don't know.
Yeah. I think do they go to you other than the bridge?
Well, like,
Oh, in the chorus.
she goes with me when all is at. She lets me breathe, and then you'll see. You're the one for me. She's on my side, and I feel fine. You're my future. You're my Supergirl. You're my escape.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
I mean,
fair.
I don't know.
It's all over the place. Who cares, man? It's a good.
I'm
it's a
pretty
fun
sure
song.
this one's not about God, though. Unless it's
No.
like feminine
So-
God. I mean, maybe. Who knows? I mean, I'm cool with that. Like, whatever.
All right, here's what Rob says. Life is more bearable when you have someone on your side. Jesus' first miracle was at a wedding. The lyrics are directly about my fiance. I love her and I'm blessed.
Okay. Now that I hear you say Rob, okay, Rob, I'm just going to be honest. Like, you don't have to pull Jesus into every goddamn answer. Like, cool, you got a fiance you're happy about. That's fine. That's enough. You don't have to pull in, like, Jesus' first miracle was at a wedding. So obviously Jesus likes people getting married. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. He gave us, you could have easily just said, like, Yahweh gave us a rib. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Right?
Yeah, I feel like he's really trying to pull Jesus into every one of his answers. But you said it was a youth pastor website, so hey,
It is from a youth pastor website.
it makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think there's much else to say about that. The last song, track 10, Starface, is kind of their attempt to do a little bit of psychedelia, I think. But they probably should have tried some drugs.
Christian band's first time trying drugs. Hit record. Okay.
Go.
Yeah.
All right. So there's 2 singles for the album. The first song, The Force, and it actually did have a video made with it. Did you get to watch this video, Jay?
Shoot, did I watch the one for the Force? I think I did. Yeah, I think I watched both of them.
It's not super memorable. It's basically like the guys in the band, and they kind of have a somewhat kind of 90s version of the mod aesthetic going on, and they're kind of like Rob is in the center on playing his guitar, but the other people are those stands that they used to put like the bands on whenever they played on TV in the 60s, like they're all like on their own individual little stand.
Right.
It's kind of like that, they're kind of all their own little stands, and they recorded it in slow motion and then played it back faster, and some balloons fall at one point, and what else is there to say? Oh, there's a there's like a lime-colored arrow that shows up at one point, which is kind of a visual element from their first album. And also the British Royal Air Force's logo, it's kind of like a target that's like blue, white, and red, showed up, which is a very popular mod symbol, I'm told. I did read the Wikipedia article on mod culture. That's it. The other single on the album was Gone, and also had a video. Did you watch this one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I watched this one. Yeah, this is the one in the car and stuff. At places, yeah.
And sadly, there's a couple different versions on this online, but they all have like this weird audio error about 2/3 of the way through that causes a bunch of vibrato after that, and so it's hard to listen to. But overall, the video is kind of like very blue visually. It's very like dark and blue, kind of like the cover for the album. There are some band parts which they recorded quickly this time and then played it slower, right, Jay? Right? Slower than fast?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And the cellist is actually in the video for this song. There's also a narrative part where I think a guy has a car breakdown on him, and so he can't get to his girlfriend's house to pick her up for a date or something. And there's a cell phone.
Whoa. What year was this? 90?
Did you see the cell phone?
What did we say? 97, 98? 98?
98.
Oh, shit. Was it really big?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. It looked like the big, like the house phone, like the cordless house phones from the 90s.
Right. Maybe it was one of
like
those, and he's just acting like...
It could have been.
I mean, I don't know about the budget for the... Okay,
phone,
anyway. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, I don't know. They're in California. Come on.
Everybody had cell phone even back then. That's what we thought in Texas, at least, right? Like California. Oh, they're all cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then at the end, the guy, for some reason, instead of going to his girlfriend's house, he just shows up where the band is playing, and then he's sad.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I think the lesson from that video, by the way, is buy a car that doesn't necessarily look cool, but that runs.
I mean, I could go with that. I mean, that's practical.
Yeah. Yeah. Practical advice from Kosmos Express.
So, give me your overall thoughts on the album.
Yeah. I don't think there's a bad song on this album. I do agree with you that not all of them are maybe ready for prime time,
Okay.
But I think the album works overall. And I really enjoyed it as a kid. And I really enjoyed it going back to it. Probably a large of that is just nostalgia and remembering the songs,
Sure.
But it was still fun to listen to. I like the dissonant guitars, the dissonant leads, I should say, the chimey guitars, It's a lot of sounds that blew my mind at the time because they weren't the kind of sounds that you hear in punk or ska or country music or anything else that I had available to me at the time, basically.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I will add that it wasn't, it was, the lyrics were so opaque that it wasn't, preachy. There wasn't a lot to be like super offended by in the lyrics, unlike next week's, which we'll tell you what we're doing next time in a minute. But I'm sure we're going to gripe about the lyrics more on that one. So
yeah.
Okay. What did you think about packaging, recording quality, all that stuff, cover art?
Yeah, cover art, I thought, it's a photo of some nerdy guys messing with one of those, like old school record players that they used to have in classrooms. There's well-designed.
Fair, yeah, I do remember that. I even like Sunday school classroom at church, I remember having that. Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's kind of perfect, honestly, as a cover. And otherwise understated, which I think works well for what the album is. So, I actually really think the packaging overall is good.
They even have I don't know if it's ISBN number. I don't know if that's the same thing they have for, but that number that's actually, listed later is actually on the front cover too. Yeah.
Yeah. It is the actual barcode number,
right?
Whatever you call it, and Starflyer did this around the same time too with Fashion Focus.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, it has a lot. Even though they're very different, it has a lot in common. Kind of like that minimalist very clean
Mm-hmm.
graphic work of fashion focus.
Yeah,
No
I
no
actually
plus
thought,
pictures.
like, honestly, the layout on this is pretty good, and I could see what they
Mhm.
were trying to do
Yeah.
with that. I thought it honestly was pretty nice. I think it was by, where did I see this on there? Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's by the Fairbanks Design Company, which is Daniel Fairbanks from Soul Food 76.
Yeah.
So
good. I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah, so connection to another band that we haven't done, but we probably should at some
Yeah.
point.
Their thanks for the album are pretty. I don't know who any of these people are for the most part, but they do thank Mike Naughton here, and I don't. And at the end it says, "Oh
No,
go ahead.
Frank and Lori Lenz. Frank Lenz was in
Okay,
a bunch of
yeah.
stuff. Jerome and Gyro, that's
Including-
Mortal, aka Folds Endura.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Ian Eskelin, All Star United.
Oh,
You missed that
Yeah.
one the first time.
I missed that one.
There you go.
Yeah, you're right. I just completely missed that one.
Chuck
first time.
Cummings, Dakota Motor Company. Some of these I just know because we've covered these bands.
Yeah.
That's about all I recognize. But yeah,
The Greek is a person. I don't know who it is, but I know it's a person.
Okay.
It says that he said that their contributions early on in Cosmos Express were greatly needed, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. At the end, it says, "Love to all our friends, supporters, and fans. You know who you are, and so do we. No thanks to those that bring us down. May the Jesus we love bless you all." Here's the thing. May the Jesus we love. I actually found that pop up a few times in his writings that I was looking over. It's very interesting, right?
yeah. What does he mean by that?
I don't know.
You know, in some ways, it's funny. So today earlier we actually were on a hike with some friends, and it gets into politics and stuff, and they didn't grow up like we did in any of this. But she was saying, look, all this Christian nationalism stuff, like all this crazy right wing stuff. She's like, if they were actually about Jesus and just following him, she's like, I'd be 100% behind it. And this is someone that like didn't even grow up Christian. She was like, that'd be great. Because I think he was a great teacher. I think he advocated for great things. Like, that's not a problem. But, what they're really pushing for is power and all that. But so it makes me think about this. May the Jesus we love bless you all. Like, my interpretation of Jesus, cool.
Yeah.
But the real Jesus,
Exactly.
maybe not. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, is it distinguishing from a different Jesus, or I don't know. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, it is interesting.
What do you think of the album title, Simulcast?
It's fine. I don't know what it has to do with the album, though.
Fair. It did make me look up the word when I was a kid.
Okay. And?
Oh, it just means simultaneous broadcast,
Okay.
like on more than one. Yeah, like more than one channel or more than one media. Yeah.
I feel like maybe they were still trying to do a throwback to that jam era, and maybe
The mod
this,
thing,
yeah,
yeah.
maybe this felt like something that sounded like
I
that.
agree. Yeah.
Clifton, where are they now?
Yeah. So I can't find a single word written about the end of the band. I know they called it quits about a couple years after this album came out, with no hint at another album ever being in development or anything. The guitarist Bo Burchell actually joined another band around this time that this band started that was called Open Hand, but he was also like just one of like many members that seemed to kind of come and go through that band. He went on to start a band called Saison, sorry, Saosin.
Oh, God, that band got really kind of big for a
Yeah.
while. Yeah.
Yeah, so they got pretty big.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, very successful kind of emo post-hardcore band. It's actually pretty. I actually listened to some of it today. It's pretty good. I liked it. The band's still together. Even he's the only original member now, but he's still doing that. He also had a pretty successful career as a music producer and engineer. Rob and the drummer Mark Powell went on to form a band called the Get Set, as in Ready, Get Set, Go. They got signed to Crank and put out an album in 2001. I listened to it, didn't really like it much.
I was going to ask, I didn't get to listen to it much, but Crank like put out Mineral. They put
Yeah.
out a bunch of stuff we liked from the time, and I didn't know that till doing some notes for the show. So that's
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Yeah, I didn't like it much. I don't know. It just felt weird. It felt awkward to me. Like it wasn't. I don't know how to describe it.
Okay.
I didn't feel like it came together. Maybe that's the way to say it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Rob put out a solo album in 2003, then pursued a career writing music for TV shows. Around 2011, he put out a few songs, and then a couple songs in the last few years. And strangely, he seemed to kind of disappear from the internet around the same time that he released a song in 2020. Social media accounts, they're not just like private, they're just gone. Like everything's like, you can see where he used to have media accounts, and now they're just gone.
Huh.
So, very weird. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't find any solid information about the bassist GJ Torres unless he is this martial arts expert that keeps coming up when I search that name.
Well, maybe he is.
Maybe he is. And if he's not, that guy has dominated that name in search results.
Clifton, do you have an award for this album?
I do, Jay. I'm going to say that this is probably the first and last album that we're going to cover on this show that is influenced by mod culture.
Okay. Fair.
That's it.
I think you're probably right.
The moddiest of all.
There you go. Clifton, what are we doing next time?
Much like our last album, it took us pretty much 2 years of doing this to ever cover MXPX, right? Which is maybe the biggest thing that happened in like alternative Christian music that we listen to.
True.
So much like that, but on a different path, we are finally getting around to doing the decent Christian talkers. DC Talks Free at Last.
Boom.
Wow, 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 wow.
Yeah, so Clifton and I think that was peak DC Talk for us. I know a lot of people
Peak
it was
DC Talk.
Jesus Freak. By then we'd kind of moved on, but
yeah.
Free at Last, that's it for us. So you're going to get our take on it, about 30 years later. And I'm pretty sure neither one of us have really listened to it since then.
0 times. All right.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Your Music Saved Us.
If you enjoyed your time with us, please leave us a review or share this episode. Visit patreon.com/YMSU to contribute and get extended episodes. Visit our website, yourmusicsavedus.com, to find out all the ways to listen. We're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Join our Facebook group or follow us to keep up with the latest or to interact with us. Send complaints and disagreements to yourmusicsavedus@gmail.com. We probably check that every few months, and maybe one of these days we'll even do like a listener. We should do like a listener input episode, Jay. Like we never cover that stuff. We should really do.
Yeah, and I think
we get some really great stuff from listeners too, and I'm always so busy.
You're right, and I think what also Clifton's maybe trying to say is maybe post it in the Facebook group or message us on Facebook, and it might get more response because it sounds like email's not being checked very often, which fair. Clifton's usually the one that checks it, so I really can't say anything. Yeah. Listen, finally, the music in this episode is the work of Kosmos Express and is used with apologies, not permission. And I don't think there's any you can directly buy online other than like Discogs or eBay or something. But Rob has some stuff on Bandcamp, and I think Clifton can link to it in the show notes.
I will, indeed. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, bye, everybody.
face. Now we're recording.
Okay.
All right. You want to do a count on 11?
On 11? Sure.
1, 2, 3,
4,
4, 5,
6,
6,
7,
7,
8,
8,
9,
9,
10,
10.
11.
Okay. All right. I think we've got everything. I'm sharing audio. Yeah, I don't know what else.
Okay. We're good?
Yep,
You want me to start?
I guess so. Let's do it. I say the middle part.
Okay.
Do you say the?
I think I say the
fuck,
beginning
wish I
and the
could
end.
remember.
I don't really know.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. All right, we ready?
Yeah, let's do it.